I feel like we should be in the backyard for a barbecue here because that's what you did for all the candidates.
Yeah, we did it in 2016, and we did it again, obviously, this year. We had everybody except President Trump. We even had RFK Jr., where we had almost 2,000 people show up.
Incredible.
So it was really, it was a great service for all of New England because we had people, obviously, from Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, you know, the whole New England region, and they were very, very well attended.
Well, I want to hear from you for a moment on the significance of this contest. It's very quiet in Manchester this time around. It feels a little different with the sense of inevitability in the air. There was no debate last week. It's just a bit different. But when I look at the union leader's endorsement of Nikki Haley, there's a line that stands out at the very end. New Hampshire can prove, the union leader writes, that the independent-minded voters of the Granite State will not be told the election is a done deal. Is this thing over or not?
Well, that's the question du jour. Obviously, Donald Trump would like it to be over, and I think a lot of people maybe around the country wish it was over. But New Hampshire is an independent state. People take their votes very seriously. The joke is, hey, you're going to vote for Nikki Haley? Well, I need to see her 5 or 6 more times. Right. And they literally expect you to go into each and every living room. Now, Nikki is a wonderful person, hardworking. She's done it the New Hampshire way, like John McCain did with the McCain Express. And it really mattered because he won. I think if she doesn't win or come within 2 or 3 points, it's probably inevitable because it's almost a little over a month to go to South Carolina, then thereafter, and you know, it's going to be tough to catch up at that point.
So when you hear Governor Sununu, when you hear Nikki Haley herself suggesting that a strong second is enough, you are saying strong second is actually almost tied with Trump, ultimately, 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, I don't think a second really matters at this point. I mean, President Trump is polling well all around the country. Whether you like him or not, you know, there's a feeling out there. They look back, comparing to what's happening now under Joe Biden. You know, gas was $1.82. There was no border issues. We were getting out of wars. Inflation was non-existent. Our kids could buy, you know, homes. There's so many things that are upside down right now that the people who say, you know, I don't think I'm going to vote for him, they're actually looking at him again because they look at their pocketbooks and wallets and say, you know, I'm kind of done. And Joe Biden does not have a message to say that are you better off as you were under President Trump or not? Yes, they were. That's the problem, and he doesn't have an answer to that.
You know, we talked to Governor Chris Sununu about that. I'm sure you're close to the governor, and he is no fan of Joe Biden. He made it clear to us that he'd vote for Donald Trump if it came down to it, even though he's clearly endorsed Nikki Haley. But here's what he also said about the Trump brand and the reason why he decided to endorse Nikki Haley. Let's listen.
Because of that Trump brand, we've lost in 2018 and 2020. And 2022, I'm so tired of losing, and I'm tired of losers, and I think we're just tired of that brand that just drags the rest of the Republican Party down, right? What's the point of scraping out a win in the presidency if you lose everything else, like he has time and time and time again?
It's also kind of a tough view there, Scott Brown. Are you sick of losing?
Well, listen, first of all, I think you need to get better candidates. I don't think it's President Trump's fault that the state reps and state senators in the House and in the local states won or lost. Yeah. I mean, you know, you have to have good candidates who do their homework and go door to door and do it the right way. Is there a certain trend that people look at them all on one barrel? Sure. But I think that the good people stand out, like Governor DeSantis. He won. And quite frankly, that's why he was a little bit of a target, because he's the only one that won in that cycle. And as a result, he was hammered constantly by President Trump and the super PACs and everyone else who didn't like him.
Were you surprised by the timing of DeSantis dropping out of this race? He didn't even give New Hampshire a shot.
I kind of had a feeling. I've spoken to him. He's been over the House, for the barbecues and everything. You could tell after the strong Iowa finish, which was good. I had Haley coming in second, but then he went to South Carolina, skipped New Hampshire. He went all over. It was kind of disjointed, excuse me, a little bit. And I felt that was kind of the writing on the wall. They didn't know which way to go because they were kind of just like, oh my God, what are we doing? We're at 6% in New Hampshire. You don't get any delegates with 6%. So what is he going to do? Is he going to go for another almost month explaining to people why he did so poorly in New Hampshire? No, I think he made the right decision. He's only 45 years old. He absolutely is going to have another run. He's got 3 more years to rehabilitate himself. He's done a great job in Florida, and I wish him well.
He got a lot of flack for not connecting with people in retail politicking, the stuff you have to be good at in New Hampshire. I covered your race when you won that seat in Massachusetts. You were able to connect with people in a way. It was about the personality. It was about who do you want to have a beer with. That's still part of politics, isn't it? Did he learn a tough lesson there?
Yeah, listen, he may just not be cut out for it. I love people. I love meeting people. I love having a beer with people. When I was the ambassador in New Zealand, we used to have these massive cookouts. I used to invite Kiwis to come over to sleep over the house so they could understand what American life is really like. That's who I am. He's not like that. Nikki Haley is doing better. She's doing that retail politics.
Do you have to be to win?
I don't know. You're asking me how I am. I just like people. I like doing things that no one else likes to do, and we'll see what happens.
Well, but to the point of you get to know people, you mentioned how Nikki Haley has been showing up. She has been doing that one-on-one voter connection. She went to the barbecue. Yeah. The former president did not. He hasn't, frankly, spent that much time here in New Hampshire, aside from big rallies. It's a very different kind of campaigning. Has he broken the New Hampshire primary and the way it works?
Just picture this. And first of all, Nikki Haley wanted a one-on-one, so she's got it.
Yeah.
And let's just say, hypothetically, she wins this one-on-one. Then that veil around President Trump is definitely pierced. So people are going to say, whoa, is this the one who can take him down? Because he's never debated somebody one-on-one. This time, last cycle, we had 8 to 9 people still in the race in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I would love, and I think it's a disservice that he didn't participate in the debates, regardless of how far. He owes it to the American people to go one-on-one with Nikki Haley. I think it's very important, and I know a lot of people are not supporting him because of that. But he has a solid base of 34-35% in New Hampshire and probably around the country.
Yeah.
And the question is, those independents, that 40%, and maybe those 3,500 Democrats are going to come out and send a message by voting for Nikki Haley. That's the question.
Well, that's really something. As you suggest, get them on a stage, have them debate. There seems to be this feel in the party that we want to get this over with. Tim Scott endorsing before New Hampshire and not South Carolina?
Yeah, well, how about Tim Scott?
Are you getting phone calls to make an endorsement to wrap this up?
How about Nikki Haley supporting and appointing Tim Scott as a senator and then going?
He wouldn't have gotten it.
Wow, I was a little surprised.
Your phone's
about
been
that.
ringing.
Yeah, of course it has. But listen, I'm in a different position than I was back then. There are people. I think it's too late to endorse in New Hampshire. I felt my service was to provide the barbecues at my cost to people. And I think what other people are missing is, don't forget, RFK had 2,000 people at my house. 525 for Ramaswamy was the next closest.
No kidding.
He's got 200,000 volunteers. He's already on Utah. He said, and I've spoken to him many, many times, that he will have ballot access. So how does that, and then maybe the no labels are already on 13, and maybe Cornel West, how does that affect the election? Imagine Joe Biden and Trump get the popular vote, right? And then how are they going to get the electoral college votes? They don't get it, so then where does it go? It goes to the House.
So do you think the third-party candidacy question is an underappreciated risk at this point in the cycle?
Absolutely, yeah. I've seen the machine, the RFK machine. I've seen it. I mean, they're believers. Yeah, I think it's something that you really need to pay attention.
Will you endorse
polling at
in the
20%. Yeah, listen, if it's, I'm going to support like Governor Sununu, the Republican nominee.
I see.
But I like RFK Jr.
I can tell.
I'm being honest.